Welcome everyone to the MSU Extension Event Submission Form training. This is a brand new form that has been created for .cms specifically for MSU Extension events that's going to help you be able to relate your events to other websites in the system. This is something that .cms currently doesn't allow for, which is why we've created the special event form that you can now make use of. It does not contain all of the features that are found within .cms, including images, files, geolocation, or allow for hyperlinking and styles in a WYSIWYG editor format. If you would like to take advantage of these features, you can create your event using this form and then make any updates as necessary directly in .cms. And what I'm going to do is walk you through how to fill out this form. We will submit the event, and then we will actually go over to .cms so that you can see what that will look like once it gets submitted to be able to edit it within that system. So there are 3 steps that you need to complete as part of this process. There are 3 tabs that you should be familiar with having gone through the .cms training. The first one is the Content tab, which is here. The second is the Relationships tab, which is here. And the third one is the Categories tab, which is here. The other thing that you're going to notice is that there is a login and password fields on the form. What is different about this than how we typically log into .cms is that you're going to insert your username and password just like you would for .cms, but it's not going to automatically log you into anything yet. So for right now, these are just fields to fill in. Once you actually get to the 3rd tab, there's the option to submit your event, and that is when your process of getting logged in would actually occur. Now, related to your login and password, this would be your A&R username and password, which may be the same for you as your MSU NetID. Whatever it is, your username is going to be what appears before the @ symbol in your email address, and then whatever password it is that you normally use. I'm going to fill in my information here. Next, we're going to scroll down to the first tab, Content. Site folder is going to be the host folder in which you are going to save this event onto .cms. So you're going to scroll and select for your event folder. And for my purposes, that's going to be Demo. And then under title of the event, you're going to put in the name of your event as you would like it to appear on the web page. So this is going to be Test Event. If you click the tab key, it's going to pre-populate a URL for you based on what you have typed into that title field. Just like before, if you have events that are going to take place in multiple locations, it's going to be a series of events, you may want to include things like the name of the location, Lansing, Detroit, Saginaw, that kind of thing. It could also be that you are posting an event that is a series like a classroom program, like Citizen Planner program has 7 classes that they have as part of their series, and each of those gets published as a separate event. And so in that case, you would type in test event hyphen class 1 or class 2, that kind of thing. And you'll notice when you click into the URL field that it automatically updates that based on what you've typed into your title field. All right, next we get to the summary field, which is a required field. Any fields that are outlined in red are considered required fields. This is going to be something that's going to appear in the event feed on the websites that this particular event will appear on. So this will be the first, this is the first sentence of your event description. Is sentence format using punctuation, and there is a limit of characters in there, which that's showing that information. Next, you need to select for the start date. And to do that, you're just going to click into any of the text in this field, and then you're going to select for the date that you want this event to begin. Now, unlike in .cms, when you actually select for the start date, it does not automatically populate that end date like we're used to. So what you need to do is go down to end date and then actually select for the end date for the event. It may be the same day as the event, or it may be, you know, it's a conference taking place over 2 or 3 days, and then you would need to select out for the appropriate end date for your event. In terms of start time, this is something where there was a drop down in .cms that we could select for the time. In this instance, you actually need to type in the information as you would like it to appear. So for example, I typed in 8, and then I clicked the next part and I typed in 0, and then I clicked into the next part and I typed in A, and that brought up the AM for me. Now if I want this to be, let's say 8:30, I just need to type in 30, and then that start time will be 8:30. Now there is an end time field here that is not required in .cms for us to have populated, but on this particular form, it is required that we have an end time. So if for some reason you don't happen to know an end time, you're just going to need to guesstimate and put in something that would be considered the end time. To do that, you're just going to click into that first part. I put a 4, I typed in a 0, and now I'm going to type in a P, and so now we have 4 p.m. as the end time. Next, we get to the location field. This is going to be in the event where this information will actually appear on the screen. So for our purposes, if it takes place in a particular building on campus, we would want to type in that information, human ecology building. If it's say it's taking place at a hotel, then we might need to type in that information in order to get that to show up. And then we would need to include the street address and a room number and the city, state, and zip. Next is the contact information field. And just like in .cms, there are 2 ways to have contact information appear. You can type in the name of a person, a main office phone number, a main office email address, that kind of thing into this contact information field. Or just like in .cms, there's a way to relate people as points of contact. And so I can also show you once we get over to the relationships tab how you would fill in that information. So again, the contact information is just for that generic main office information, contact information. So for example, it might be spdc@msu.edu, and then the phone number. And that might be how it appears on the screen. If there is someone who you know is going to answer that email or answer that phone, you can type in that person's name to also include that information. If you don't have that and it's just going to be multiple people will be answering that information, you don't need to include that first name in there. All right, I'm going to remove this information that as I've typed it in here because like I said, I'm going to show you how to make that relationship as the point of contact. All right, next we have the description field, and this is a little bit different than what we also have in .cms. We are used to seeing a WYSIWYG editor that allows for us to include styles, it allows for us to make hyperlinks, it allows for us to add in images and those kind of things. This particular form is literally just plain text field. So you're going to need to type or paste in your information, basic text, and then you can go into .cms once you submit this form and actually make the edits to it to add in that extra information that you need to include. So just like in .cms trainings, you're going to copy what's in the summary field from above, and you're going to paste it down here in your description field. And it's important that you do not leave this description field blank. That's why we want you to copy and paste over that first sentence from the summary. We want there to be information for people to learn more about your event. So other pieces of information that you might include here could be if there's particular speakers that are going to be presenting. If there's an agenda, you might paste in that information. If there's a cost to attend, you might include that information. If there will be CEUs as part of this event, you might want to include that. If there's particular parking directions, that kind of thing. Next is registration information, or in .cms, this is called link. When you actually publish the event in .cms, it will bring up a register button. Now, this is where I say in the .cms trainings, if you have a specific web address to a conference website, you can paste it in here. Or if you are having A&R Event Services help you create a registration form for your event, you can paste their URL in here as well. Remember that whatever link that you put in here, you want to get folks as close as possible to the actual registration form so that they're not having to navigate through an entire website to try and get to that registration form, since the link does say register. All right, we have completed tab number 1, content, and we need to move on to the relationships tab. So to do that, we're going to scroll up to the top and click on the relationships tab. Now we have a place field here. This is if your particular event, let's say it's going to take place in Alger County Extension Office. You can include this as the particular place, and in which case the information that we had on the content tab wouldn't need to be filled in because this information will get populated on the page. Next, we're going to need to have you select the A&R organization hosting or co-hosting the event. It might be MSU Extension or Organizational Development, so you should make that distinction, and then it would also appear on that particular website's calendar. Next, we have, excuse me, counties. Counties are a data set. So in order to get one or more counties to actually be selected for this, you need to click the checkbox. So I'm also going to do that for my MSU Extension under Organization. So let's say your event's in Alcona County, it's in Baraga County, it's in Berry County. If those are the only 3 places that you want this event to get promoted, that would be all you would select for. Now, if you want this to appear in every single county in Michigan on their websites, then you're going to need to physically click through and check each box for each of those counties and make sure that they're selected. There is not a button that allows for us to pre-select all of the counties. So yes, you do need to scroll through the list and click on each one of these checkboxes. Which, as you can see, takes a little bit of time. Looks like we're nearing the end, so that's good. And then you just want to scroll back up through your list if you want them all checked to make sure that they do have a check mark in all the boxes. Okay. And then we also have programs, which is a data set. So if there's any related programs that you would like to have featured, you would need to select for those. And there's an entire list here for that. There may be extension topics that you would like to get selected. This is also a data set. So you would select for whatever appropriate extension topics you want to include. And then we actually get to that person point of contact, as I mentioned before. You can select for one or more points of contact. All you need to do is select the checkbox next to the name of the person. And I think I might be in this list, so I'm going to scroll down. Oh, I'm not in this list. Okay. I'm going to scroll for someone else who I know it's not going to matter if their name gets selected. All right, we'll say it's Sean. Okay, so we now have a person point of contact that we would like to have selected. Now, here's the thing about the person point of contact. This is why you don't fill in this information under the contact information field under the content tab. This, when you make the selection, it's going to use their particular email address and their particular office phone number. This won't be a generic office phone number. This will be their main phone number and their main email address. And it will bring up their name, their title, their photo, and then their phone number and email on the actual event page when it's submitted. All right, so we've reached the end of the relationships tab. So next we're going to scroll up until we get to the categories tab. And this also looks a little bit different than what we are used to seeing in .cms. Unlike in .cms, if there are pre-created tags that we might want to use as part of this, we don't have that luxury with this form. So for example, normally I type in .cms training and it pre-populates my tag for me. I won't do that this time. So I need to know ahead of time what I want those tags to be and just duplicate those from what I might be using in .cms. You also, with this particular form, want to separate your tags with commas. So let's say this also happens to be an event that's going to be related to apples, which is another one I use in my trainings when I mention that. So you would do .cms training, comma, apples, and then any other tags that you might want to use, which might be the same as those relationships that you made. So it could be the different counties, like Eaton County. It could be 4-H, that kind of thing. There were several delineations for 4-H, so you might want to be a little bit more specific under, I think it was programs. Yes. So there's different minutia for that. 4-H life skills. So that would be a tag you might want to use if that was something that you had selected in the relationships tab. All right. So once you get your, let's finish that off here, life skills. Once you get your tags created, then we actually get to this submit button. So I make sure I've got all of my information filled in first, just so that I know that I've covered all the bases. So I've got my tags in here. I'm going to go back to my relationships, make sure I've got everything selected the way that I might want it. Since I'm using that tag for topics, 4-H life skills, I'm just going to select that here just to be more thorough. And we've got our point of contact in here. And then content, you want to make sure that your site folder is selected for. It's a required field, so that shouldn't be an issue. Just make sure these other fields that were showing up red before are not showing up red anymore. It looks good. All right, so then I'm going to click back into my categories tab and click the submit button. And you should receive the message that your event has been submitted. If for some reason there's an error that comes up, you can reach out to this MSUE website at anr.msu.edu email, and they will be able to help you sort out what might have happened. Sometimes it might be you fat fingered it with your username and password, but that's just one type of an error that you might receive. So again, if you have any errors or any questions about how to use this form, please send your emails to MSUE website at anr.msu.edu. All right, now that we have our event submitted, I'm going to go over to .cms and actually see if my event is going to show up here. All right, and it was Best Event Class 1. And yes, it is showing live in here. So all I need to do is actually click on it. And it's brought up the event as it appeared in .cms on that form. So now there's fields in here like image, which you are able to include an image now, but it's not part of the event submission form. The time field is back in here, which wasn't part of that form. This repeats option wasn't part of that form. Geolocation. Now this is something that you do want to go back in and fill in so that this is something that will get selected for again. This geolocation, if you'll recall, is the Get Directions button that's actually published once this event goes live. So you do want to go in and fill in for geolocation. Now, that said, what I didn't cover before is that if your event is taking place and it's like a Zoom meeting, like what my trainings typically are, then under location, you would actually fill in virtual or Zoom or something along those lines, and you wouldn't actually have a physical address to fill in there. Okay. And then you should see under data set all the different counties that are in here, plus any of the topics or programs that you would have selected for. Those should also be listed in here. Your organization has been selected for and your place has been selected for. And then under categories, and our tags are showing up as published tags. All right. If we need to make any edits to our .cms, for example, we need to click on this lock for editing button, just like per usual, and then you would click on the publish button to make your changes go live. Okay, so we have gone through the submission of our event form and we have double checked it in .cms to make sure that what we actually published has gone live. And then we have walked through how we can actually make edits to this once we're in .cms. So I'm going to publish my event and then it should actually go live on my website and I should be good to go. This completes the training for the MSU Extension event submission form. Again, if you have any questions about the use of this form, you can reach out to MSUE website at anr.msu.edu and they can help you sort through anything that you might need help with. Thank you so much for your time and have a great day.